Today we got together here to interview Mr. David Pearson, CEO of Opus Wine. As a special guest, we also invited James, who is a friend of mine and a very famous wine collector here in Tokyo. So, Mr. David Pearson, I would like to start some of the questions, and the first question is about the name Opus One. I believe that the opus, it derives from Latin word.
Correct.
And then how was Opus One, the name Opus One, selected as a winery name?
Right, well, that's one of my favorite questions. Okay. It's asked quite often because it speaks to the very nature of the idea that Baron Philippe de Rothschild had and Robert Mondavi had in 1978.
Okay.
When they came together, they said they would make one single wine of the highest quality, and this wine had to reflect a marriage, a synthesis, a blending of the two families, the two cultures, perfectly together, representing both French and California, both Bordeaux and Napa. So this was the genesis and the basis of the wine. They started on the project. The wine had no name for a number of years. The working title was Napa Médoc, and they referred to as Napa Médoc through these years. And they searched for a name. They came up with ideas like Gemini for twins, or Janus, which is a two-headed Greek figure, and nothing really satisfied. They decided that the name should be in Latin, so that both languages would have equal access to it.
I see.
If the name was French, it would be a little bit lean toward the French, and English a little bit better. So Latin was the idea, but they couldn't find it. And one day, Baron Philippe de Rothschild called Robert and said, "I have the idea. The name is Opus, which is Latin for work, usually related to a great work, a great musical work." Both men were very impassioned by art and music. So he said, "The name is Opus." And Robert thought about it and said, "Yes, that's not bad, but it's not complete." And so the men hung up, and a week or so later, Baron Philippe de Rothschild called back again and said, "Okay, now I have it. It's Opus One, one signifying the one singular wine that they intended to make together." And there Robert said, "Okay, now you have it."
Okay. Amazing that for a number of years you just used the name Napa Médoc. That sounds very industrial to me. And
well, it's very curious because we reflect back upon it, and as the two families came together to do this, this kind of project had never been conceived of before. This idea that there should be an ability to bring production, winemaking talent and skill together and blended to work in concert had never been tried. All of this was brand new to them, and so throughout the entire process, from when they first came up with the idea in the Baron's bedroom in 1978 to when the wine was first released, the first case was released in 1981 at Auction Napa Valley. In fact, the first Auction Napa Valley. First case came out, still under Napa Médoc, and yet there was such an anticipation for this working title wine that case sold for $24,000, which at the time was the highest price paid for a case of wine. So the entire process, creating the label, the image and the label, is very difficult to try and find the balance again between a contemporary expression and one that reflected and honored tradition, the one that balanced both men, both families. So that's another story in and of itself.